Gosh, that voice. Love it. Oh, that's lovely. Hello, Fiona. Hello,
Hello.
hello. Everybody, I'm going to introduce you today to the wonderful author Fiona Clark, writer, author, extraordinary woman, because she has a brand new book she's releasing called Menowars. Fiona, have you got us the book to show? Yes, there you go. And literally, I'm recording this with Fiona about 2 days away from the actual release date. So if she gets ever so excited, you understand why. And I think this is important that we all understand who Fiona is because when I read the book, I already knew Fiona and I knew her personally. And I knew about her competence and her passion, her interest in menopause generally from all angles, not just the medical world. And now I want you to know her as well. So you can be really encouraged when you're reading the book, which is full of facts, that Fiona knows what she's talking about. So, Fiona, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, where were you born, for example?
I was born and grew up in Tasmania, so about as far south as we are, as far south as you are north at the moment, actually.
Yeah.
And I went to university in Queensland and I studied probably what could only be described as one of the most useless degrees in the world at that stage. It was a combination of English, anatomy, and exercise physiology, which I guess would now be called a sports medicine degree. And then I went on to become a journalist because I really wanted to make the world a better place. So I worked for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation for about 20 years on their, before I left most recently on their equivalent of Newsnight. And then I went into medical publishing. So I've had about 20 years in medical publishing as well. So my two passions, or three really, I guess, are politics, health, and international relations.
Oh my gosh, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, and look, that degree, let's just flip back actually. That degree sounds fantastic. In fact, I would say that degree has actually set you up quite well for some of the parts of this book because you do talk quite in depth about female parts and things like that in the book. And I know, of course, you're not a medical person yourself, not a GP or whatever. However, because you have been a medical writer for a couple of decades and you did anatomy at university, then you really had a grasp on, I feel, doing anatomy and physiology gave you a grasp on human anatomy before you even became a medical journalist. So I think in the book you tell us, do you, that you used to dissect parts of the body, sections
Yes.
of the body, and yeah, is that right?
Yes, we did. We did. And it was interesting actually, because when I started the book, I didn't have a long period of time to write it. So I thought, oh my God, where am I going to start? So I thought, I'm going to start with vaginas because that's what I know best. So I went straight in on that one. That was the first chapter that I wrote. And in it, I described basically how, when I did anatomy at university, we didn't talk about any of these things at all. Absolutely nothing. We dissected a lot of penises, we dissected a lot of testicles, but we didn't dissect any single part of a woman's reproductive organ at all. We had one lecture on it, and when it came to menopause, it was just sort of like, well, your periods have stopped. End of story. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So we didn't really discuss any of it at all, and that was obviously a big mistake because even after that, and having had 20 years in medical publishing, nobody told me my clitoris was going to shrink.
Oh,
It's a pretty vital piece of information for women to want to know, really.
definitely, absolutely.
Others may have become accustomed to it or quite like it. So, yes, it's a bit of a
Yes.
shock to find out that it may not actually be doing as well as it used to do.
Yes, yes. And that brings me to your humor in the book. So there we go. You've just dropped it in. I think I think for everybody listening, when you read the book, there's a lot of information, a lot of facts. It's really good, really comprehensive. And it just goes into, as I say, all aspects of menopause, not just the anatomy or physiology or the symptoms. It goes into the politics of it. It goes into what you can do. It's practical as well. It goes into the history. However, it could be quite a dry subject. And I love, Fiona, how you drop in occasionally some sort of humorous little kind of snipe or joke or little snippet. And that really helps. And there you go, in your dry vagina talk, in that chapter, you certainly do. I think, oh, actually, I can't, I'm not going to give away some of the things you'll
Yeah. I think when I was approaching it, I thought, okay, and basically, this is there are menopause books which run through everything that you need to know about getting through perimenopause and menopause, and this does weave in all of that information. But in general, it's I've taken a step back because what started as a very a collegiate group of women gathering around kitchen tables across the country grew into a menopause movement, and now it's really it is a solid force of a movement. So it had a moment and now it's a movement. And I've watched how that landscape has changed. So we now actually have doctors openly fighting with each other on social media. We have a situation where women are saying, well, I don't know who to trust. Do I trust the woman with 10 million followers, or do I trust the person who comes from the establishment who's literally said nothing for the last 5 years and is now saying that that person is wrong? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of confusion out there and a lot of anger. So I've stepped back to sort of look at how have we come to this point? How do we evaluate evidence? Then why does it matter? Because as soon as when you have that confusion, you've got this huge gap that opens up for massive commercialization, and we are worth a lot of money. So I've looked at how much we're actually worth,
Yeah.
and not only that, but it still plays into that sort of medical misogyny. We see an awful lot of that, workplace discrimination. Is it a disability? Is it not a disability? Does the word disability actually matter? Is it actually wrong for us to think that the word disability is a downside, given that, as Jennifer Weiss-Wolf in the book says, we've learned a huge amount from the disabled community when it comes to the workplace.
Yeah.
So, getting hung up on the word may not necessarily, it's not necessarily an insult to be disabled. So maybe we just need to rethink the semantics. So it looks at those kinds of things, the misogyny, and then it goes on to look at our long-term health because we have an incredible data gap. We are underrepresented in studies continuously, especially even in the ones where we are more likely to suffer from those conditions, dementia, osteoporosis, autoimmune conditions, those kinds of things. So it looks at our brain health, our vaginal health, our bladder health, our bone health, heart health, cardiometabolic health. It looks at all of those sorts of things that change silently around menopause that we might not notice, because we notice obviously the vasomotor symptoms, we notice the mood swings, but these ones we don't. But yet we spend 25% more time in ill health than men. So
Yes.
we need to close all of these gaps. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I want people to get angry, and I think they should get angry because at the moment, women's health is literally under attack. We've
Oh,
got a
yes.
Trump administration that is pulling back funding. It nearly closed down the Women's Health Initiative, as controversial as that may be from the HRT studies back in the early 2000s. It is the largest, longest running, comprehensive study of women's health. And to shut that down is literally chopping your head off, not just your nose to spite your face, it's just chopping your whole head off. It's a really bad decision. And now we have the attacks on anti-abortion, anti-vaccine, anti-pill, and now anti-paracetamol in pregnancy. Women's health is under attack. So we need to advocate, and that's what the last couple of chapters look at, advocacy for women's health. How do you advocate for better systems? And then how do you advocate for yourself? Because we're still being told it's all in your head.
I know you go into GP surgery, or some GPs, some are fantastic. Some you go in and they say, "Oh, it'll be okay. Just have a cup of tea and take it a bit easier." Ah, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
you go and have the cup of tea and
Yeah,
take
exactly. You go have a cup
and
of tea. Come
whilst you're
and
at
help when
it,
you've
learn
sorted the
about
problem.
menopause. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I and there we go. In a nutshell, you've just told everyone why it is such a cracking book, because you take this word menopause and the whole umbrella of what it means in the world today, all the aspects of it, and you put it in this book. And what I love the most is it's so factful. You put in as much of the information as you've been able to find, about all sides of all the stories or all sides of all the research. Let's take brain health, for example. You put the facts in that there is quite a number of medical people suggesting that HRT, that's hormone replacement therapy, does help our brains as we age, but there's others that are showing through research, strong research. Well, maybe actually it doesn't. You put those facts in and you just give it and we can judge for ourselves. I love it. I absolutely love that. And you've woven that all through the book, and whatever point that you're trying to make is just it's the factfulness. It's just
Yeah.
good. Very
Especially with the brain and things like that, because it's very easy to say, we've got estrogen receptors in the brain. Look at them, they're screaming out for estrogen as we go. But not everyone, as Pauline Mackey explains in the book, and she's one of the world's leading researchers, she's the one who actually discovered estrogen receptors in the brain about 20 years ago. As she says, 100% of women go through menopause. How many of them develop Alzheimer's disease? About 20%. How many of men develop Alzheimer's disease? About 19%. So there's not a huge amount. The diagnosis is made when women start to develop it more than men in our 80s. So
yeah,
something has changed, but it's not necessarily that it's the estrogen. So what she's, or I mean, the estrogen is involved, but
yeah,
to a certain point, the question is then, who are the vulnerable women?
yeah,
And what the research is starting to point to is it's those women who have untreated vasomotor symptoms, untreated or poorly treated high cholesterol or high blood pressure, and also sleep apnea,
yes,
because these are the things that cause the little hyperintensities in the brain,
yes,
and also the buildup of those plaques. So we have to find the women who are more likely to have those things and get those treated, and that is probably going to bring down that proportion of people
yes.
who develop Alzheimer's disease. And the other thing are really their lifestyle. I mean, as the Lancet points out, there are 14 things that we can do in our lifestyle. They're healthy eating, not smoking, making sure we exercise, getting our hearing checked, getting our sight checked, remaining active, remaining social. Did I just say that? Clearly, my mouth was going. Yes, they're the sorts of things that
Yes.
they think that lifestyle could actually reduce the number of cases of dementia by about 50%.
I know, and that was great as well. That's what I meant also, that you put these actionable points in different areas and different sections to do with different things. But you say, okay, well, this is what you can do about it, and this is based on this research or this evidence, and not just Fiona's point of view. So
No.
really
My
good.
point of view doesn't matter. I'm the journalist.
Yes,
There-
there you go.
I mean, there are bits obviously where I've really given my opinion quite
Yeah.
strongly. So, yes, especially when it came to the misogyny one and the autopsy on that poor woman a couple of hundred years ago. I mean, literally. I mean, if you're squeamish, you don't want to read that really. But when you get to the end of it and you just see the litany of things this woman had, and they still said she was making it up. She had gangrene of her labia and anus, for God's sake. She could not have been making this up.
No, the
And
pain that woman was in. We'll leave the reader, we'll leave that for those reading the Menowars book to read about this, which I had never heard about this dissection of this woman that died. This is what you said 200 years.
1807. So you would have thought that things had improved over the last couple.
Yes, well,
There's a number of times in the book where I said you'd be sadly wrong. So,
there you go.
because yeah, you would just hope that these things would have got better or they would have been fixed or something, and they just haven't.
I know. And then it's like endometriosis. Don't get us started on that. And that how it's only just beginning to even just trickle in.
Yeah.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So well done. Now, because of all this passion and all this medical research that you've all had to look at, in fact, for not just this year, but for decades, and your knowledge base and the skill in your writing and your understanding of all of this, I think it's fantastic that I think we need to mention that you founded the charity, which is the Menopause Research and Education Fund, a just total non-for-profit organization. Can you tell us a bit about what prompted you to do that? How did that come about?
Well, I guess since you know me and you've read the book, you understand that my tolerance for things that don't move fast is pretty low.
Okay.
literally over the last 5 or 6 years or so, I've spent, especially during COVID, nearly every weeknight interviewing experts on menopause. And we'd always get to a certain point in the conversation where I'd say, well, what do we know about the evidence for this? And they'd say, well, we don't really because we don't have enough studies or the studies haven't been done. And after a period of time, that just started to, it was going in my head, and it got to the point where I was so frustrated that I went to the very lovely Diane Danzebrink, who's a long-term menopause advocate, and to Vikram Tadalaka, who is a reproductive health specialist and menopause specialist at UCL. And I said, we've got to do something about this. Call me crazy, but I think we should start a charity and try and, boost awareness for the research that has to be done, raise money if we can. So if the government or the NIHR isn't going to fund these studies, that we can actually do it ourselves, and also make sure that healthcare professionals are educated with evidence-based education, and that women have access to evidence-based information. So that's what we did about 18 months ago, and we got our charity status last July, I think. And it has been ignored since the book, I have to say. I've been sending out an apology email to people sort of saying, I know I've been off piste this year, but I am coming back now. And hopefully we can grow that and actually really make it a significant force for the betterment of women's long-term health, because nobody else is going to do it unless we do it for ourselves.
There you go, exactly. Well, thank you for starting that, and thank you for telling us what I especially like. Well, actually, I really like it altogether, but what I like is that you have this educational course for healthcare practitioners of any type of healthcare practitioner that wants to understand menopause better. And I think, is that right? You do run a
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, but it's for healthcare and allied, because they get CPD points for it. So in theory, it's for everybody who needs CPD points for registration. It's one day. It takes you literally from, recognizing menopausal symptoms to, helping with cancer patients and pelvic floors and endometriosis and mental health and God, unscheduled breeding, cardiometabolic health, GLP-1s we're throwing in this year. So it's really for them. But I actually think it's really for, anybody who comes in contact with menopausal women, because there'll be a lot of the stuff that's not relevant. If you're not prescribing HRT, then you
Yeah,
can just tune out on those
yeah.
things. Or if you're not dealing with people with endometriosis or fibroids, just skip those bits if they're not relevant to you. But the beginning bits of understanding what the symptoms are, understanding the lifestyle things that help, understanding what happens to your pelvic floor. If you're a PT, you know that's a really good thing to understand. For the metabolic stuff, for nutritionists or dietitians, I think it'll be really, really helpful. So I think it's suitable for a wide range of people. But obviously it is aimed, there's a lot on the prescribing in it, but
Of
for
course,
20
absolutely.
quid to whiz through to find what is relevant for you, I think most people would come away from that learning something valuable.
Yes, yes, yes. Good, great. Okay. Well, thank
Especially
you for that.
menopause coaches, because apparently somebody was saying yesterday, Philippa Kay was saying yesterday, or somebody put a comment up that a menopause coach was telling people to do something very, very weird with egg white and honey or whatever, saying advising people if they wanted to remove their pubic hair or something to follow this TikTok trend. And I was sort of sitting there thinking, no, why would a menopause coach be saying, if you want to remove your pubic, remove egg white and lemon? I don't know. It's not going to solve it. It's not going to
Okay.
wipe your pubic hair away.
Well, I hadn't seen that one, and I don't think I'm going to try it anyway. So there you go.
Oh, I think it's just make a nasty mess, and it could have been better served in a cake.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I I think we have, well, you're absolutely showing your passion that's coming through here, which is I love. I absolutely love. And I think people have got an understanding of the book. And I feel like what we'd like to do is just better understand just what what it was when you were researching the book. What especially really, or well, perhaps you already covered this, what really stood out to you? What were the things that you went, oh my gosh, people have got to know about this? Was there anything that would for you was a, oh, I didn't know about this sort of moment, or have we already covered that?
Oh, I was angry so many times.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Very easy to make me angry though. But yes, I was angry many, many times as this. I think the thing that really stuck out for me was when you put it all together, when if you're born with ovaries,
Yep.
you are discriminated against in terms of income from pregnancy to childcare, then to looking after your kids while they're at school, then for caring for your elderly or sick parents. And then you hit menopause and you're taking all of these extra days off and you're not going to be paid for them. You might have to cut your hours back or you might have to leave your job. And so you are literally retiring on a fraction of what your male counterpart will. And that really, really upset me. And
Yeah,
I think that
actually, you do. You put actually the figures in the book, the facts. And I went, oh, really?
that railway workers study, I mean, seriously, we retire with £206,000 less. And
Yeah,
to make that up, we would have to work for 19 years more after retirement age, which takes us to 84. We die on average at 83. So we're still working in the grave
yeah, yeah,
just to
yeah,
make parity.
yeah. Okay. That,
Yeah.
well, I did read that and I thought, oh, flipping heck. Is,
Yeah.
so yeah, so there you go. So there is another fact that you found out whilst you were researching for this book. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, showing women are kind of on the back foot, a large
Yeah.
majority women anyway,
And
before they
people are starting to research this now. There's very little research on how much money women lose as a result of menopause, but it's starting to be done now. And I think it'll be interesting when we get more of those statistics because
absolutely.
we'll be able to better quantify it.
Yes.
And the other thing too is, unfortunately, we don't get action unless we quantify everything as an economic cost. And this is why we have to be saying to the government, okay, it costs 1.5 billion in terms of absenteeism, presenteeism, and lost productivity to the UK, $1.8 billion in the US. And unless we can show that it's affecting the economy, nobody really wants to do anything. And I think
No,
that that's
that is very true. And now, and you know that because also you were a political journalist as well. And I know that and getting funding, it really matters. They need to know those facts. But it's great that those facts are coming through. And that is good. I didn't know that they were actually looking specifically at the menopause and looking at that financial cost to the workforce and to businesses. I know that McKinsey and people like that have been doing plenty of those reports, which is really, really good.
yeah.
So that's interesting. And so much. Actually, there's so many good facts in the book. There really are. So if someone's not particularly interested in that area, you have all the facts, or you have the history of how we arrived at where we are today. Then you have the personal facts for that woman. And as you say, sure, it's not a book that is just specifically about menopausal symptoms and what to do about it, but I think you've covered it really well, actually. That
It's all in there, but I guess it's just not set out in that traditional sort of way of symptom X, and this is what you do. It is all in there, but it's a bit sort of more woven, really, I guess.
yeah, 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 yeah. So
Woven to make the point.
I'm sure you can't be biased, but who were some of your favorite people to interview for the book? Because I think it was over 40 people you interviewed, professionals in different areas. Who was somebody that you just thought, oh, this girl, she just, or this person, yeah. So was there anybody that stood out to you?
Oh God, yeah, so many. I always love talking to Michelle Griffin. She's amazing.
Tell
I
us, hang on, who's Michelle Griffin? Tell us.
she's a gynecologist and obstetrician, and she is the BBC Science correspondent as well, or I'm not really sure how you health science writer or something. And she does femtech and those kinds of things as well. So she's sort of well-rounded in all those sorts of areas, and she was also on the NHS Confederation, which is a very large report that was brought out to tell us where and what we should be doing in the future. I also, it's interesting because a lot of people have said to me, why did you interview that person? Or why did you interview this person? Because obviously it is a fractured landscape, as we know. And one of the people that I got questioned about was Mary Claire Haver. And I loved talking to her. She was absolutely fantastic. But the reason why she's in there, I mean, I know not everybody agrees with everything that she says, but the reason why she's in there is because she is integral in
Yeah,
telling how we got to this point.
yeah,
Because she was the one who gathered everybody, her menopause, in the US, and made sure that the response to a set of Lancet articles that caused ruffled a lot of feathers, basically saying that women should get over it, and they came back saying, I don't think so. And she and Jennifer Weiss Wolf got that into Ms. magazine, which, if people remember, is Gloria Steinem's magazine. And Gloria Steinem was, and still is, an incredibly respected US feminist who has channeled and challenged and pushed for female rights and kids' rights and race rights and all of these sorts of things. She's a wonderful woman. And oh my God, I sound like Donald Trump then,
yeah.
except he doesn't normally say wonderful woman. Um, so she's done an amazing job for women's rights over the last, God, since the 60s. How many years is that?
Yeah, how many decades? Five decades? Four, no, six. Hang on. My maths. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, she is inspiring. Absolutely. And so Marie Claire Haver managed to get an article into that magazine, which was challenging an Australian research, not a research, Australian paper that came out, which itself was challenging the right to use HRT or the reasoning behind HRT use. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, no, it was saying it was going to empower women, and it's sort of like, well, I don't know why we're not already empowered in many ways, but it's basically, yes, it was sort of questioning why we need HRT so much, and if women are more empowered and this, that, and the other, they'll be able to make better decisions for themselves. And there were bits in it that were there were bits that were good, but there were bits that obviously made people incredibly angry,
Yeah.
and not just there as well, even Susan Davis and Rodney Bay a second. What do you think we've been doing for the last 20 years over here? So it made a lot of people a little bit upset. So yeah,
Yeah.
she was integral then in sort of pushing that forward. And she was just a lovely person to talk to as well.
There
So,
you
and
go.
Pauline Mackey, absolutely love talking to Pauline Mackey. She is so good.
Can you tell us who is she? Yeah.
Is a professor of gynecology, obstetrics, psychiatry, and psychology. So, I mean, this woman hoards degrees. She has been a researcher on brain health since, gosh, the 40 years as well, at least. And so she's the one who literally, she was saying, she did discover those estrogen receptors in the brain in the late 1990s, and said basically, I was a true believer. I too believed that because these were flashing on, that estrogen was the answer. But then as things went on, she's gone, well, it's not the whole answer. She was the one who came up with the vulnerable brain
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I've really found that interesting. I mean, look, I did find the whole book interesting, but I was really interested in that chapter where you put all sides of the story, including hers, of course. And interesting enough, you do point out in the book that she's not on social media, she's not all singing or dancing. No one even knows who she is, and yet she's profoundly involved in the research of women's brains, especially in menopause. And has she got her opinion, a sound opinion,
Yeah.
based on her research. And so I found that so interesting. So I love it. Look, I love the book. I just love the book. And I don't say that a lot about um non kind of novel, a fun little novel to read on holiday. But this is not a fun little novel to read on holiday, but you could definitely read it on holiday. I
I
think
want everybody to read it on holiday. I want them on the beach with this out.
yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But it is not just, it's much bigger than just menopause. It really is about women's health.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Absolutely. And you get that across. And look, it's not pushy. You're not ranting. You
I did rant in spots.
well, little bit of spots. You go, for goodness sake, or other words to those effect. And so you had right to at those points when you're pointing something out. However, I mean, someone reading this, don't worry, Fiona's not ranting the whole way through. She is giving you the facts about different aspects of women's health at this point in time when they go through menopause. And that's for you to then decide to end up being ranting afterwards, which I think you will probably will do, or at least being having the desire to drive forward like you do and I do women's health. And so, but it's so worthwhile on so many other levels, an understanding of what's going on with us in this menopause time is also there in the book. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for writing it. And I can't wait for the next one, although let's get past this one first. And I think, Fiona, it's amazing how you have really kind of nurtured the space and understand it and combined it all together and just had this brilliant umbrella vision and you push it all there in that book. So well done. Well done for
you.
that.
Thank you. I mean, there are a lot of stats in there, I do have to say. So, but you can just sort of and just get the picture. You don't have to read every individual
Yeah.
stat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's
yeah.
fabulous. Really good. So congratulations. And I hope that the launch goes really well on Thursday. Brilliant.
Thank you, Blossom. It's a shame you won't be there.
I know, I know. I can't be there, unfortunately. All right. So I am going to say goodbye to everybody and go away, please, to Amazon or wherever and have a look at the book and download it or listen to the audiobook or buy it physically and have a really good read.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.